Well, hello there, and welcome to the FOX6 Sports Blitz. I'm Brandon Cruz, alone in the studio. But you can see right there, Tim Van Vorn and Lily's out live at Lambeau Field in the atrium where it's nice and dry after a very wet and windy afternoon. Let's take a look at tonight's starting lineup. The Packers stumbling their way into the bye. A little more election talk and say what, and the Bucks just can't stop their slide. The Brewers find gold twice. Plus, we go for a run with our high school hotshot.
We just got to look at the film and just be honest with ourselves, knowing we know what we got on this side of the ball, and we just got to be able to play to that standard and just keep doing it every week.
And that's what it's about, playing to a standard, and I would believe that the Packers don't believe they have been playing to their standard 9 games into the season at a 6-3 record coming off of this 24-14 loss to the Lions. Tim, when you look at their collective effort today, how far off the standard were they?
Effort, I think, was there. Execution certainly lacking, Brandon. The Packers had 24 or more points, 6 straight games, longest active streak in the league. That comes to a crashing halt with just 1 touchdown today. To me, the offense was what let this game down across the board. Special teams wasn't great. Defense, I thought, was better than average against the Lions offense, but the offense couldn't get much done. Again, 1 touchdown, that was late in the game. For most of the day, you're looking up there single digits. That's not the kind of football this team wants to play.
And speaking of looking up, Lily, Jordan Love, when he's looking up, does he see who he's throwing to? Something that's going to be talked about for quite a long time and something that has really been nagging him, these bad interceptions. And this one costs the team points and puts them down in a big deficit at halftime.
Certainly, I think when we all saw the play unfold, we were thinking, oh no, because it goes right into the hands of Kirby Joseph. You couldn't get a much easier interception if you tried as a defender. It went right into his hands, and he runs right the other way into the end zone for a pick 6. So that's the last thing that you wanted from Jordan Love, because again, they had time to drive down the field, potentially get some points, and make this a very manageable deficit going into the break, knowing the Lions were coming out in the third quarter to start the game with the ball. So that really put the Packers back, and it was a backbreaker. You know, they go down 17-3 at the half, and Jordan Love also adds to his interception total, leads the NFL now with 10 interceptions, has a pick in every single start this season. So that's something that he's going to have to improve on. If you looked at how he played last year, right, he protected the football very well in their stretch run. He was clean in 7 of their last 8 games in the regular season. So that's something he's going to have to get back to if this Packers offense wants to be the best version of themselves.
And Tim, they go into the bye. How does Jordan Love work on this issue? Because clearly it's something that is staining him at this point, especially, as Lily said, an interception in every game so far.
And he hasn't been interception plagued throughout his whole career. So that's what makes it a little confounding. As Lily pointed out, the exact numbers from last year, Brandon, I don't know how he works out. Tom Clemens is great with the quarterback's coach is great with the footwork and getting yourself ready to play in the NFL. I think he's done a fine job with Jordan Love there. Matt LaFleur can give you the schemes. It comes down to decision-making in the moment, and that's on Jordan Love. There are risk-rewards interceptions, what I think are certainly tolerable, and Jordan Love has thrown a few of those. But this one today, there's no excuse for it whatsoever, and that's not the only one this year where you would say that.
Yeah, and Lily, when you look at what he was dealing with, obviously it was raining, obviously it was windy, and then his receivers in this one just kept dropping ball after ball after ball. Does that play a factor in this?
I think 100%. I think it was interesting, the narrative going into this game, right? This was the Lions' first outdoor game all season long, and they played like the team that was used to playing in the elements. The Packers, it really affected them. They had a couple of fumbled snaps. The drops, obviously a big factor as well, and 2 of them could have been touchdowns. And again, when you look at the deficit that the Packers faced to date, that could have been the difference had those players made their catches, especially in the end zone. So the drops certainly were big factors in why this offense couldn't just sustain a long scoring drive or score at that. And when you look at the opportunities they had in the red zone, 4 trips down there, just 1 touchdown and a field goal to show for it. So they have to get better in that regard, but those drops certainly were killer for this Packers offense.
And inside that red zone, Tim, you have a lineman shifting over and Elton Jenkins to center because Josh Myers is out. And those are critical snaps that he just could not get to Love very easily. And it turned what looked to be possible promising drives into drives that either were a field goal or no points at all.
just not mentally sharp, and then that leads to not being physically sharp. As you said, Elton Jenkins is playing a position that the Packers train him for, but that's not his main position, and it's a domino effect across the board. And then you can't score. You've put yourself in a situation where you're trying to play catch-up. You cannot make mistakes. Those are critical mistakes, particularly because of where they're occurring on the field.
And I feel like we have a whole checklist of mistakes to go through. We haven't touched on this, Lily. 10 penalties for this team, and they almost all seem to come at critical moments when they were either moving the ball or stopping the Lions, and then it changes the whole dynamic of that drive and of the game.
I certainly agree, Brandon. I mean, they had a penalty on the very first play of the game, and that was from Keyshawn Nixon on special teams after a good return, so you can't have that. But in terms of just timely penalties, you talk about Brian Branch. He gets ejected, leaves the field doing the double bird. Packers have all the momentum. I mean, his 2 penalties cost him 30 yards. Packers have a chance there to drive down the field, put some points on the board. What do they do after that penalty? False start, and then they miss a field goal. So you miss opportunities like that because you put yourselves behind the sticks, but they do it time and time again, and they do it in all phases of the football. So of football, I should say. So it just is very discouraging, especially on offense when they have chances to score, but they can't do it because they hurt themselves.
Yeah, and Tim, with that, I mean, she just said it. All 3 phases of this game for the Packers, key penalties hurt them. So where does the blame lie? Is this a coordinator issue? Is this a bigger coaching issue, a culture issue? Or is this just guys not focusing when they have to focus at key moments?
Probably all of the above. Keyshawn Nixon on the very first play of the day had the 15-yard penalty. He had a critical defensive penalty later when they had come up with what looked like a 3rd down stop, and then there's a flag away from the play that keeps that drive alive. Is that Keyshawn Nixon? Is that special teams coaching? Is that defensive backfield coaching? It's hard to say exactly what. Is it just that we're at this stage of the season where the mind just isn't as sharp as you might want it to be? That would be one thing if it was just this game, but penalties have been an issue throughout the first half of the season. So, Brandon, it's holding your feet to the fire somehow, some way. Is it coaching? Is it telling these players there's going to be some sort of consequence, whatever that may be, if you continue to make these mistakes? They're absolutely backbreakers.
And after the game, you can kind of sense the frustration that Matt LaFleur had, Lily, and he's now 2-5 against these Lions. Is he doing something wrong? I mean, he is a Michigander. Is there maybe a little more pressure internally he's putting on himself against these Lions?
Potentially, and that's a great question for Matt LaFleur, but I think for him, it's just when you look at his teams versus Dan Campbell's teams, especially at Lambeau Field the last 3 years, what do the Lions do better? They execute. They don't have penalties. They don't put themselves in those bad spots, and that's exactly what the Packers have done 3 straight years against Detroit. You know, they lost by a wide margin last year at home. They lost by what should have been probably a larger margin than 10 points today, but it just, teams for Dan Campbell, they're executing, and he puts them in good positions. And, you know, you call some good plays, whatnot as well. But, you know, the aggressiveness from Dan Campbell has really kind of been his pedigree in Detroit, and his players feed off of it. But they execute, and that really was the difference today. Had the Packers executed Matt LaFleur's game plan, this was a winnable game for Green Bay.
And it's not just today. Detroit, 189 targets this season, 1 drop coming into this game. Packers had multiple drops today alone.
Yeah, it is glaring to see how that is happening. So here we are. We're at the bye. It's 9 games in. The Packers are 6-3. Tim, those 3 losses, not a terrible sum in their parts, but if you look at them, they're all NFC losses and 2 are in the division. How critical is that with 8 games to go?
It's not embarrassing who you've lost to. 3 good NFC playoff caliber teams, but you're looking uphill in the conference. Last year, the Packers had to fight their way into the playoffs, then go on the road. Everybody has fond memories, if you're a Packers fan, of the big win in Dallas and the strong performance in San Francisco. But that's not really the format you want to follow. You'd like to have a little more control as you get later into the season than trying to scratch in at the tail end of the regular season. And the Packers are putting themselves behind the 8 ball in the conference. Yes, 6-3 is a good overall record, but 3 losses in the NFC is daunting, and 2 of them at home in your division.
Yeah, that is tough. And Lily, you were in the locker room. How does this team seem emotionally after these 9 games? I mean, I know you're coming off of a loss. It was windy and wet out there. But in general, how does it look like they are approaching this bye week because of the 9 games they've had leading up to it?
The leading sentiment I really heard, Brandon, from the locker room and these guys was there's still a lot of season left. Again, I think Tim touched upon it earlier. They were 3-6 at this point last year. Flip those numbers around for what they are right now. But again, they probably could be a lot better record-wise, again, had they executed. So the team is knowing that this bye week is critical for them to look themselves in the mirror. Tucker Kraft said it perfectly. What kind of offense do we want to be? If we want to be an offense that struggles and continues to have penalties, we're not going to improve, but they're going to have to find a way to just to flat out execute and be better after the bye if they do want to compete in the NFC.
All right, they need to use this bye as a respite and a chance to refresh as they take on the second half of the season. Well, switching gears, once again, the Badgers just get beat up. This time at Iowa, they lose 42-10, their worst beating in the rivalry in more than 50 years. And just to add a little insult to that injury, the Hawkeyes keep the Heartland Trophy for a 3rd straight year. On the other hand, what a start to the season for the Milwaukee Admirals. Last night, they won their 8th straight game, sweeping the Moose in Manitoba. They improved to 8-1 on the season, and we're going to be right back with Say What.
Do I vote? I don't even know if I vote for her.
You really want to ask that question out of the gate?
I just like getting people's attention with something.
My significant other think he's sexy, so.
Wow. That was interesting. Was that Taylor Swift?
I'm here to, win basketball games and answer to basketball questions. But I wish both candidates best of luck.
It's election season. Even Giannis getting asked about the upcoming presidential election. Tim Van Voren and Lily Zhao still at Lambeau Field. Guys, with the Bucks, there's some serious news coming out today. We find out Bobby Portis' house. There was a home invasion as the game was tipping off last night. They've already lost 5 straight. How can this affect this team that is already reeling, Tim?
Negative. It's negative on the court. Obviously, Bobby Portis very disappointed in social media, and you can understand why in that situation, expressing his displeasure of what's occurred here. You really couldn't have a worse start on or off the court than the Bucks have this season without really throwing in a major injury. If you had that, it would be even more.
It would be. And on the court, Lily, this team is getting great play from Giannis, great play from Damian Lillard with the exception of one game. Where is everybody else?
That's a great question, Brandon. I think if we had the answer, the Bucks probably would have more than one win. I mean, the bench has not been great whatsoever. 13 points in their loss to the Cavs. A 1-point loss, mind you, where Giannis and Dame combined for 71 points, and it still wasn't good enough for the Bucks to get a win, and that is why they're 1-5 on the season. Their bench is not putting up points. I think when you have Taurean Prince playing for Chris Middleton in the starting lineup, that does hurt the production from that second unit, but who else is going to step up? Bobby Portis, Pat Connaughton, those guys have been inconsistent, and that is why the Bucks are finding themselves in trouble, and they need scoring help behind Giannis and Dame.
And Tim, quickly, what can Doc Rivers do to kind of flip the attitude and flip the results on this court?
He can invite Chris Middleton back and allow him to play, which then would slide one player back into the bench area. Really, I think they need to do something to kick it up, but you don't have that firepower off the bench, and it's killing them right now. I don't know what Doc can do about that.
Yeah, it really is. They play the Cavs tomorrow night in Cleveland. Now, switching to the Brewers, some good news tonight. 2 Brewers players getting gold gloves in Sal Frelick and Bryce Terang. Lily, how big of a deal is it for these young players to be honored for their defense?
I think it's massive. When you look at these guys, second-year players for the Milwaukee Brewers, to get a nomination, first of all, to be a Gold Glover, and to win it, Sal Frelick out in right field, Bryce Terang at second base. It's phenomenal for both those guys. I think they were spectacular in terms of the defense that they played for the Brewers. 22 runs saved for Bryce Terang, so he did a phenomenal job out there in the infield. And Sal Frelick obviously made some great catches this season as well, robbing some home runs. So big props to those guys for getting some hardware, and much-deserved hardware after a great year.
We'll see if they they get platinum. Reese Hoskins decides he's going to stay with the Brewers. However, the Brewers do not pick up the option on Devin Williams, Tim. Is he going to be traded in this offseason?
That's been a Brewer formula, these players that get to that free agency year. We've seen it, although it didn't happen, of course, with Willie Adames. So that's the exception. My guess is Williams would be traded. You have Trevor McGill right there ready to take that spot.
Yeah, they've always seemed to line up their closers pretty well. We'll see what unfolds in these winter months. Finally, Lily, when you look at what has happened with the Brewers, how big of a deal is it that Reese Hoskins is coming back, or is it a big deal?
I think it's a big deal in terms of just the leadership he provides, right? You know, very reliable at first base, very loved in the clubhouse. So I think he provides that balance for this team and veteran leadership as well. And, you know, coming off, being out the whole year, plays well. We'll need to play better next year, but that leadership certainly does help, Brandon. All
right, the Brewers in the hot stove league right now. More awards coming as we head into November. Well, it was a busy weekend at the Pettit National Ice Center with long track speed skating taking center stage. The Fall World Cup qualifier in the 1,000 meters sees Kewaskum's Jordan Stoltz in a familiar place. He finishes first, more than a second better than his nearest competitor. Stoltz also became this year's U.S. speed skating mass start champion. Coming up, we'll be back with our high school hot shot. And thanks for staying up with us on the Fox 6 Sports Blitz. An injury helped inspire a deeper appreciation for his sport. In the process, he became one of the best runners in the area and helped lead his team to record accomplishments. Here's this week's high school hot shot.
Hi, I'm Kyle Keeper. I'm a senior at Kettle Moraine Lutheran High School, and I run in cross country and track and field. 4 years ago, going into the freshman year, I never would imagine being here right now. I definitely did not like it for the first season, probably freshman year, but after that, I just started falling in love, and now here we are. So I've been the most valued runner 3 years now. I'm two-time defending conference champion, two-time sectional champion, and then the last 3 years now, I've been a state qualifier. Last year, top 5 was sort of like the big goal, and then I took third, which was incredible. Last 3 years have been probably the 3 greatest teams in school history, I would say. You know, we've just had incredible runners and an incredible group of kids. I would say I've definitely tried to start more conservative and then just a quick finish. I'm always known for my kick. Usually about a K to go, 800 meters to go, and then the last 100 I always just give it everything I got. I don't know where it comes from. This year the biggest goal coming into the year was school record. I want to get that school record. One race I came 2 seconds away from it, and then a couple weeks later at our conference meet I tied it. So I have Great Pyrenees, 2 Great Pyrenees, one Timber, he's 8 years old, and Echo, he's 3 now. Yeah, I play percussion in band. I love metal detecting and magnet fishing. I metal detected a World War II POW camp here in Wisconsin. Found some 1850s coins and found a sawed-off shotgun barrel in a lake once. That was interesting. My parents have just gotten used to it. Every little piece I find, whether it's a little nail or a little piece of tin or whatever, I have to put in my bag and put in the collection. And my friends, I've convinced a couple of them to go out with me. I'm Kyle Keeper. I'm a senior at Kettle Moraine Lutheran High School, and I'm a 3-time state qualifier in cross country. And I'm this week's Fox 6 High School Hot Shot.
And Kyle made it back to state, finishing 11th this year. He would love to continue his competitive running career in college, but first, he's looking to the track season in the spring. Well, former high school hotshot Ella Anschutz of Muskego wins the Division I Girls Cross Country State Championship for a 2nd straight year. Congratulations to her on another gold medal. And the high school football playoffs moving up to level 3 on Friday. Our game of the week is in Division I. Arrowhead traveling to Mukwonago. Lily Zhao will be there. I'll have the rest of the action from the sectional finals on the high school Blitz Friday night after Iowa and UCLA right here on Fox 6. We'll be right back. All right, guys, in our final seconds here, Tim, you first. Who needs to flip the switch going into the second half for the Packers?
Jordan Love.
Lily?
I'm going to have to say the Packers offensive line.
All right, thanks for joining us. We'll see you again next Sunday night.